Okay, so now I think we're good. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:35. It's the Pilot Committee on Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. This meeting may be watched. Our residents may participate in the meeting remotely with the meeting link at https://ma-southborough.civicplus.com/674/virtual meetings. Okay, we also have one person in attendance. So the first item on the agenda is to welcome our new members, Parul and Tony. And maybe we'll just give you each a minute to just tell us a little something about yourselves in case other people here are not familiar with you.
Should I go first? Yeah. Hi, I'm Parul Sharma. I work in Westboro as Associate Director of Quality Control, and I joined this group, the Pilot Committee, to help with the payment in lieu of taxes, like, from the exempt companies or organizations. And I live on 4 Winter Street.
And she's my neighbor, so I forced her. And Tony?
My name is Tony Schoner. I lived in town since 1992. Very happy to be on this committee. Hello, Michelle. And nice to see you all.
Tony is our representative from Capital. What's the name of that committee?
Capital Planning.
Yeah, Capital Planning. Okay, the next agenda item is to approve the meetings of September 23rd, 2023, which we had put off because of losing the person that took the minutes. Does anybody, oh wait, first we need a motion, right? And then we discuss. Is that correct?
You can ask if anybody's got any changes or corrections to the minutes first.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any changes or corrections to the meeting minutes from September 20th, 23?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept them?
I make a motion to accept them.
And a second? Was that a second?
I second. Yep.
As we'll do a roll call vote. Michelle?
You're muted, Michelle.
You're muted.
Yes.
Okay. Kathy?
Yes.
Parul?
Yes.
Actually, Tony, we probably should leave you guys out since
I need to abstain.
You guys can abstain because you weren't.
You should abstain.
Yep, that's
and,
right.
Frank?
Yes.
So
Okay.
this is September, is that correct?
Yes,
That
so
was the September
4-0.
20th, 2023 meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And Michelle's a 4-0-2 vote.
Right. So the next item is to approve the meeting minutes from October 11th. And does anybody have any edits to it? I actually have a couple of edits.
Good.
Michelle, line 24, the last word on the line is shared. You're missing an E.
Oh.
And line 36, Kathy Cook asked that, and that should be deleted.
Well, could you say that again, Patty?
Line 36, Kathy Cook asked that you should delete the word that.
Okay.
And those are the only things I have.
Great.
So is there a motion to accept these minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the October, what date, Patty?
11?
October 11th, 2023 minutes as amended.
Second.
I second.
Okay, another roll call vote. Michelle?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay,
So 402 again.
we're good on that. So I was just going to review our prioritization of objectives and outcome for our new members. And our objective on this committee is basically to do the research of where we stand in comparison to other towns and private schools, and learn a little bit about how they negotiated, whether they have a signed agreement, whether it's a handshake agreement, how often does it change, in what form are the payments, that kind of thing. And what I'm going to suggest is that we work with a intermediate goal of presenting the select board, because we are under the jurisdiction of the select board, presenting the select board with a report of what we have learned. And, given that, everybody's busy and whatnot, I'm going to suggest that we put our objective for the end of the third quarter of 2024 to have a report for the select board. What do you guys think?
Calendar quarter?
Sure.
That's
So
what you
I was
meant?
thinking end of
September
September.
30th?
We can just say September 30th. I don't think that's
That's
anything.
reasonable to me as far as having enough time to put together the report, the interim report that would basically describe what we have researched as far as other schools go. So Patty, that's interim, and then the final report would be the recommendation as to what the committee thinks the select board should do going forward. Is that what your committee is?
I think so, but as this is a standing committee, it will be ongoing to offer support in that regard and to update these materials. But yes, I mean, does that seem reasonable? Is there a specific time of the year that the real negotiations happen with these schools?
Yes. It's May, early June. The schools are on a June 30th fiscal year themselves. So the discussions take place in May and June, just like the town has a June 30th fiscal year. So that has been the traditional discussion time in the last few years.
I expect that that's probably too tight to be as encompassing as we want it to be, to do something for this May, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Agree too. And keep in mind too, the schools are, they've got big changes coming as far as our leadership goes. Faye has a brand new chair of their board. They've had the same chair for 9 or 10 years, and he's a very strong chair, a new person's chair, and they've also got a new head coming July 1st. St. Mark's has not had traditionally the strong chair. They change their chair quite often, so it's the head and the CFO are the people who kind of lead that school's direction. And the head is also retired June 30th, and so there's a new head coming July 1st from Deerfield Academy.
Is anyone else having trouble with audio?
Kathy
bit.
seems to be coming in and out a little bit, but I think I'm fine with
Yeah.
everybody else.
Well, I don't think I could do much about it. I mean, the Tennessee House.
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So moving forward.
It's also the case that schools, that private schools typically are beginning to think about budget for the following year as early as fall of the previous year, right? And so if we do a September 30th piece and then we do an appropriate reach out, or the town decides to do appropriate reach out based on the report, it is timely in that sense from the perspective of the school.
He's right. Can you hear me now, Michelle? Okay, so just to add on to what Frank said, totally agree. They start talking about it in the fall. They almost all have a finance subcommittee of the board that starts working on it, and then they start talking about it, and then they finalize it in February or so for the next fiscal year, because that's when they start accepting students and making offers and set their tuition rates and set their financial aid rates. So by February, they're pretty well set on what they're going to do for the fiscal year that starts there next July 1st.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Our fiscal year, so you're talking about our fiscal year, and they put the payments in before the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th, right? Okay. Frank, on the last, as we were closing the last meeting, you mentioned 766 schools.
Yeah.
How that would fit in. Perhaps you could just expand on that a little bit and
Sure. So I think 766 schools are a very different kind of private school than other private schools like St. Mark's. So NECC is a 766 school. St. Mark's and Fay are not. 766 schools take kids from public school districts. They specialize in care where the public school districts are unable, either because of the specialized staffing that is needed, or because the district is too small and has too few numbers of kids to be able to support the kind of specialized instruction that a student needs. So when students are placed out of district, they either go to collaborative settings or they go to what are called 766 schools, even though the name of the law has changed because, you know, times have changed. They're still referred to colloquially as 766 schools. Budgetarily speaking, they are heavily regulated by the state because the state kicks in a good amount of the funding for a child who goes to a 766 school, typically, because it's generally goes beyond what a school district's scope of budgeting can be. The state regulates the tuition that gets paid to schools and then regulates very tightly with audits and whatnot how those schools operate. So those schools are under a set of regulations that are much stricter than that apply to regular private schools. They also typically don't have the endowments because, well, for many reasons, including the fact that they haven't been around as long typically, and they serve a specialized population and they serve, you know, tuition sending districts, and it's just not the same demographic that would provide that kind of accumulation of assets over time. And endowment's important because the less endowment you have, the more you are a tuition driven school and you are making your budget run each year by hook or by crook by the tuition mostly for what comes in, as opposed to what comes in from financial donations or from endowment. So that's my general take on these schools. Kathy, you please offer more if you want, or, you know.
Well, I so agree. I mean, I didn't know it was 766, but so I'm just going to add on a little bit to what you said. So when the K through 8 in Southborough sits down to work on their budget, the thing that they worry the most about is their special ed budget, because they don't know, there's so much in that budget that's out of the control. They may have some children that really need, you know, one-on-one help. They may need to place children in a residence someplace. And so they don't know. So the state does give what they call circuit breaker money to help offset this, but the school system still absorbs quite a bit of it. So Frank is exactly right. The money that NET gets to our present place comes from the tuition that they get from the various school districts that they have students from. Then when you see things like the Diane Kim Institute, when you drive by, they do then raise money privately to build things like their pool. They built now a dental clinic. They're working on a hair salon inside there. So they do raise outside money for big capital things, but the operations are funded by the payments that the school districts have to make with the students that they have at NEC.
It's mostly public money, in other words.
Kathy, where does that come out of on the town budget? Is that specifically under
K-8.
special
The school.
education, the
So
school
if you
budget?
look at, so if you were to look at the K through 8 individual, you know, like the detailed budget, you're going to see a big number there for special ed. So what Frank is trying to say very eloquently is Neck is different than St. Mark's and Fay, quite a bit different. They already, the only reason that they make payments, and I'm going to take back what I said about when they make it, Neck is different. We just got a check for Neck for $52,000. They make payments when the real estate tax bills come out, because they're trying to mimic the taxes that were paid on some of the property that they bought from a gentleman named Tony Kwan. So that's why they make the payments they do, is because Tony Kwan asked him to do it before he sold them the property, or else they wouldn't even do that. So they make about $105,000 of payments right now based on what the taxes on those old properties were at the time that they bought the property.
Right, but that was the property up on Route 9, right?
Yeah, so it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not the
it has
houses.
nothing to, it has nothing to do with the, dozens of houses that they've purchased. And
And the reason they have houses, as we all know, is because their children don't go home at night. A lot of them, some of them do, but a lot of them are not able to live at home. So they live in residential houses with, instructors around the clock.
no, the ones here are not houses, student housing. They're the houses.
Okay, you're right. And then
for
they've got the student houses. They offer a,
the master's program.
Yes, it's a very difficult place to work. So therefore, to entice people to stay, they have a Western New England master's program on site that they offer free of charge. And so a lot of those students that Patty's talking about living houses are the students. So, yeah, so you're right. Sorry, Patty. They have those houses out there. There's just some big ones around us that 70 students.
I don't think any of the ones around here are actual students from NEC. Are they?
I think one of them is.
Is it? Okay, so in regard to the 766 schools, what kind of percentage increase have we seen from these schools? Were you going to look and give us an answer on that, Kathy, of over the last few years?
NEC has an increase. They've been kind of stuck on this $104,000 for a few years. I've spoken to them about it. They are going to look at that and talk to us about it. So they've made the same payment for a few years now. St. Mark's has increased fairly significantly percentage-wise last year. So theirs have gone up every year for the last few years. Fay has kind of bounced back and forth because they haven't committed to a payment that would be used for operations. They have bought stuff. And so it depends on what they've been asked for. They can contribute to the fire truck that we've got this 10 years old. So theirs has gone kind of up and down as far as what they need.
So Fay has usually been around $10,000 a year, right?
Some years more. Last year was 40. They actually wrote checks for 40, but it was supposed to be spread over 2 years, so it'd be 20.
Okay. So this year will be nothing.
Don't say that, Patty.
Okay. Fingers crossed. Okay.
So FYI to Tony and to Earl. So I'm on the select board and I'm the representative to these schools. That's why I'm talking as much as I am. So I'm the one that goes over there and sits down and talks to them about, what's going on. And it's not just, write me a check. It's, trying to have a good relationship with the schools. They're important to the town. So that's why I'm talking as much as I am now, because that's what I do.
Also, to bring our new people up to speed, there's been some stuff going on in the state government that there's a bill I believe it's to amend one of the general laws, if I'm not mistaken, that is out there. There was, I had sent out a link to these guys a while back, and it was a piece done on WCVB Channel 5. And what they're trying to do is, in this amendment to the bill, or amendment to the general laws, is any organization that is exempt from taxation under clause 3rd of said section 5, owning total property valued at above $15 million, shall make payments in lieu of taxation on all real and personal property owned by the organization in the city or town equal to 25% of the amount that would be paid if the property were not exempt from taxation. And then I think that another part of this is that this, if passed, this then has to be approved by per town. So a town can, I'm not quite sure. It's above my pay grade. But supposedly a town can require pilot payments.
The town has to adopt it, so the town's
Right.
not forced to, they've got to separately also adopt it before it would
Right.
apply to the town.
I don't think it's an opt-out. I think it's an opt-in. So my hope for that is minimal. But it's out there, and there are definitely people working on it. One other avenue that I've always actually been interested in is the actual exemption in the Mass Revenue Tax Code that allows these facilities to be tax exempt. And that specific line that allows that specifically states that it needs to be entirely for educational purposes. Which brings us back just to the residential housing, obviously, that is in question. And at some point, I'd like to look into that a little bit more, have somebody look into it a little bit more that has more knowledge of tax law than me to get an opinion.
Patty, can I make a suggestion about maybe what to do with that piece of it? Our town council, which is a firm, lawyers who do nothing but municipal work, understands this law pretty well. I've actually talked to them. I would suggest we invite one of them to one of our meetings and, you know, pick their brains directly so you can hear what they think as far as our specific situation, and where they, you know, what they think about the chances of success of us trying to assess how the residential piece of
Residential pieces.
the properties of St. Mark's and Fay.
I think that's a really good idea. We can do that. We can ask them. Do we have to have approval from the select board to seek input from town council?
I can deal with that. It will be fine. This is a very legitimate reason to ask. I mean, we do Zoom, especially we're going to Zoom. Zoom.
Okay. I just know that there's been other boards that have questioned the town council issue. So I don't want to tread on feet that we shouldn't. So we started out by compiling a list of a lot of private schools. And then Michelle took that list and started contacting these schools. And if you just, I will share my screen, and then I'm going to ask Michelle to give us a little overview of where she is at with these schools. And then what we could maybe do is we'll put this in the shared folder, which I don't think Parole and Tony probably have access to yet. And then if you would like to contact one of these towns to find out how they deal with their private schools and what the result is, that would be great. And you can just sign up your name. Okay, I got to figure out how to share my screen.
So go to the bottom and it should pop up in the middle, say share screen.
Oh.
Then you still have to click on the actual
Oh,
document.
and no, you know what? It's a new computer, and so it's making me go through hoops. Zoom may not be able to record the content of your screen until it is quit. No, I don't want to quit Zoom. Okay. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Can you get rid of the,
Okay, there we go. So Michelle, maybe you could just take a minute and walk everybody through this.
So what I did, and I actually just made a template email, and I actually contacted these towns, and I contacted the assessor's office. And I did, in fact, get some return email. Some of them, were very quick about that. And this is basically what they gave me. And, what I did is I contacted the towns that actually have schools like St. Mark's, but I did not know if we were going for Catholic schools or anything else,
I
but
think-
mostly
yeah, I
like
think-
St. Mark's and Bay.
Mhm.
And
Was
as you
this
see,
from the list that I put in there with it? It seems like there were more, no?
there's more on this folder.
No, on the original list of
Oh, yeah,
schools.
Yeah, no, this is not from the list. It's from,
Okay,
what I did do, and maybe this was not the right thing, I actually looked up, I Googled private schools in Massachusetts. And then I got a list of the private schools in Massachusetts and found out where they were, and that's how I got that list.
okay, got it. So we might be able to add some more into this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I know this was a while ago that you put this into the shared drive. Have you since heard from anybody, or any of these awaiting contacts, or do you think that they need to be contact?
I think that we need to tap them on the shoulder again, and maybe a phone call, but I think a phone call is going to be difficult to do. I don't know what you think about that. I feel like an email is more official.
Mhm.
I don't know your thoughts, guys.
Well,
I
technically,
was,
payments would all be public record, so it's not that they shouldn't be giving out that information on the phone.
Okay. Well, it's
Okay.
sometimes difficult to get somebody on the phone
Yeah.
too.
And then to pin them down for an answer. Kathy, what were you gonna say?
why don't one of us, and Michelle, if you want to go to the townhouse and call Brian Valentine and Paul Sabelli ahead of time and ask them if we could have 2 minutes of their time together, and ask them how they would get this info from you, to what the best way to do this. That's your assessor and your treasurer. So they should know how to do this, and they might even have a list of names that you give to.
I'm sorry, you're asking like when,
Ask Paul Sabelli and Brian Valentine what the best way to get this info is. How would they, how would you get it from them? Would you call, I tell you who really would have it in our town would be our town accountant, Colin McCullough. She's one that keeps that spreadsheet. We call it local revenue. So she's got the spreadsheet, so when it comes in, she keeps track of it. So just ask them, or call them and just say, if you were us and you really didn't want to spend hours on each one, what would be the most effective way of getting this info from neighboring towns that have schools like? It is a public record. It probably sits in the local revenue, but the local revenue is not necessarily something you can get to easily as far as the detail.
Michelle, do you want to do that? And then,
Yeah, I can, let's see, Monday's a holiday, and I'm working all next week, but I can probably go the following week. You said, so go see Brian Valentine, Kathy.
Yeah, he was very
Okay.
helpful, very friendly.
Okay.
And just say, what would you do if you were us to try to get this quickly and effectively, not spend more time than you need to.
Okay. There's actually a couple of towns responded saying, whatever we do, if we could share the information that we gather with them, that would be helpful.
when I had contacted that woman from the pilot committee in Boston, she said the same thing.
Maybe we should form a WhatsApp group
Yeah.
with the one, like, you know, so all the information, everyone is available.
You mean to share with other towns? Pearl?
One second. What I meant was, like, you know, if we look as we are getting council's information or some other information, it will be applicable to the other towns too. Maybe our information, I don't know what the legality is of sharing across towns, but the town clerk should have that information, right? For
Yeah.
each town.
I wouldn't think that there's any issues with share. I mean, anybody can sign, attend this meeting. If we have our town council in to discuss this issue, anybody can be an audience member and get the same information.
Mhm.
Can we invite other town clerks to this meeting?
It's a possibility the DOR has this info. I didn't think of that till just now. They've got a ton of info. You've got to the Department of Revenue. So when you talk to Brian, ask him that and see if he or Carla think that they've got it anyway, that you have to report it. So they've got a database someplace that's got it in.
Wow. That would be very helpful.
Oh.
I just wanted to point out one of the things here. So you see Milton, Massachusetts, they actually had a pilot committee. And do you see what their revenue is?
0?
No. So
Oh,
Curry College, so they had a pilot committee and they haven't met since last March, but I just thought that was interesting that they were able to, I don't know if that was.
Milton Academy, how does that compare to our schools?
St. Martin.
Milton's, yeah, I mean, Milton, I'm guessing has more resources, but in terms of I mean, it's not Andover. Yeah, I would imagine it's more well-resourced than St. Mark's is going to be my guess.
Andover is going to be an outlier. Let's just state that. It's an outlier. I would think, I mean, if you look at on this list, who is a competitor of St. Mark's, what group of schools parents look at when they're trying to decide. Milton's right there with St. Mark's, Groton's right there, Deerfield County's there. So I want to focus on those that they truly look like would be in the group that parents would all look at the same time. Concord, Middlesex.
Frankly,
Fair
it sounds
enough.
like more work has to be done regarding Fay than St. Mark's, right?
Yeah.
So maybe even concentrate on those that are competitors to Fay.
That's a small group, which is helpful for the committee. But junior boarding schools are what they're called. That would serve middle school students. That's a small group. And I think it would be pretty straightforward to gather data from that small group.
Okay. I think it was Milton that told me back a while ago that Milton Academy owns a number of residential, I'm pretty sure it was Milton. I can go back and look. Owns a number of residential properties, but they didn't take them off the tax rolls. They've, instead of paying pilot payments, actual pilot payments, they just pay the taxes on the residential property. Do you have any idea, Michelle, if that's still the case? You didn't get any further explanation?
No, I did not get that information.
Okay. Okay, let me take this, unshare this. In the meantime, do any of you guys, I feel like I'm the only one doing talking. Does anybody else have any suggestions or insight? No?
I think what you said, Patty, is just to sort of if people could go and just choose a handful of schools and just try to contact them. But I mean, if we can get this information from the Department of Revenue easily, I think that that would be the best route.
So
Do you
how
want me to-
about I do this, Michelle? I'll make the phone call tomorrow and find out if there is a statewide database of this.
Yeah,
And
Well,
then at the same
I was
time,
gonna say, I could go in there tomorrow, actually. What day is tomorrow? Thursday. I could go in tomorrow morning and talk to them and find out if there's something, some easier way to gather this information.
Okay.
Kathy, do you want to do it, or do you want me to go there in person?
well, I'm not going in person. I'm in Tennessee. So you can go, and if you want me to tee it up for you, I will send them an email tonight, say, expect you
Sure,
tomorrow.
send an email and tell them I'll be in the morning.
One piece I would add is just that because I think ultimately it's if we're asking a question about capacity to be able to give, all these private schools, not religious ones, but the secular institutions, the size of their endowments is also public record because it's on their Form 990 that they fill out every year. I mean, I just pulled up St. Mark's and Milton just to do a quick comparison. And so if we're thinking about capacity, right? So I looked at St. Mark's, I looked at Milton, I pulled up NEC, and there's no endowment listed. So clearly they're organized differently, right? But just to name, if we're talking about what's on public record, just want to share what's there.
Yeah, so is that a worthwhile thing to add 2 columns to that spreadsheet, and one being student capacity and one being size of endowment?
Well, I think size of endowment is one feature of capacity, right? It doesn't explain the whole budget and what's going on, but endowment is one variable. In other words, I don't think it's necessarily a proxy for capacity, but if it's public record, there's no harm in having it, in my
Well,
opinion.
So Frank, what are the endowments of the two?
What's that?
What are they?
What are they? From Milton and-
What are they? Sure.
Yeah.
So, so let's see what I'm looking at right now. Hold on. I'm looking at St. Mark's, and it looks like they've got assets that are totaling 166 plus 13, so 179. Okay.
So are you looking at the balance sheet that shows?
I'm looking at the balance sheet. Yep.
Okay.
Looking at the balance sheet, there are investments, publicly traded securities, and their investments, other securities. Okay.
So
Is that all from the 990 or from the annual
The
report?
Form 990.
990, okay.
I'm sorry, what was that number, Frank?
179
it's a
million.
tax return, Tony. It's Form 990 as well.
Yeah, no, I'm
Tax-
familiar with the 990s, so it's 179 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you do is you add the investments,
no, I
publicly
get it.
traded securities, and the investments, other securities. So
I-
that's 179 million.
Understood.
Milton is hold on. Milton is 350 plus 72, so 422.
422 million.
Correct.
Now,
So I do.
I'm not
But-
sure how relevant this is to what we're doing, because a lot of those endowment funds are restricted. They're restricted for certain uses. The donors have given
That's
that
true.
money to do certain things. And so, they didn't give it to fund the DPW in Southborough. They did it for building, for financial aid. They've got to, so you'd have to look a little bit further to understand the piece of it that's restricted versus unrestricted. And that's in that 992.
So I agree with that. I mean, anything we can get from the Form 990 may be useful. Ultimately, though, it also matters how big the school is, obviously. If Milton has larger facilities and more kids that they're serving, et cetera, right? So there's a lot to think about with those numbers. to my mind, we could dig deeper. As a first glance, it's helpful just to see like order of magnitude of endowment is useful information, right? So Andover has a $1.4 billion endowment. I'm not surprised that they're making higher pilot payments. They also have a 400-acre campus serving 1,180 kids.
I bet if we were to compare Milton directly to St. Mark's, you're going to see that per capita, the pilot payments that are being made today are not that far.
Right. I mean, there is, I'm walking into work that I could be doing for the committee. I realize this. And maybe the summer would be a lovely time for a teacher to be doing some of this, not right now. But I mean, you could take certain data from the Form 990 and do some rough, percentage ratio kinds of calculations, et cetera. That would only be helpful really if we had enough pilot payment information with certain schools, at least, to be able to get some proxies for ratio of stuff. It would be tough, but you could do it. Just a lot of work.
Along this line of numbers, right? We're in information gathering mode right now. So do we know, I assume we know the total value of the real estate and property that St. Mark's has in Southborough?
Yes.
$106 million is, so every year, Tony, to retain their tax exempt status, they have to file a form with the assessors code 3ABC. And if you look at the last one, it's $106 million.
And so my follow-up question, thank you. And if they were paying taxes, how large would their tax bill be based on that number, on that value?
$1.4 million.
$1.4 million. These are just data points, but it seems like if we're going to have a spreadsheet, putting those data points in the spreadsheet for as many of these institutions and as many of these towns, it just paints a picture of what the current status is for all of these institutions in all of these towns.
I agree. And if the state law that's proposed were to pass and Southborough were adopted, 25% of that would be $300,000, which again is a lot more. If you looked at it another way.
Sorry, say that one more time, Kathy. I didn't hear you.
If the state law that Patty referred to a few minutes ago were to pass and Southborough were to adopt it, that 25% would be $350,000 is what they would pay, which of course is 3.5 times what they're paying now. The other way you might look at this is look at the services that the schools use. Obviously, they don't use schools, so you get that other bucket, but they do use, highway, roads, police, fire. So if you look at those three budgets in Southborough, and then add on some of the overhead departments that everybody uses, that's about $10 million. If you were to say that their $100 million is about 3% of the total assessed value in Southborough, then that would be $300,000. So you can get over 100 in quite a few ways that are not unreasonable.
Thank you.
I think the 3 ABCs are supposed to give a fair market value, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it says on the form, is the current fair market value. That number hasn't seemed to change much from St. Mark's and Fay over the last 5 years when everyone else's assessments and fair market value have increased dramatically.
So I don't know what their property is really worth, Patty. I don't know what
Right.
how much effort they go through to do this. They know they've got to do it. They know it doesn't mean a whole lot. They've got to file it. And then the exempt on the year. So I don't know what you could sell all the land for that St. Mark's owns. So
Just as a data points throughout St. Mark's, it's worth noting that in the endowment for Fay is 66.
I'm sorry, what?
66
million. Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, do you remember on the information that you got from Paul Sabelli on the assessments? Did that include all the properties that were owned? You're muted.
You're muted.
It was all of the properties that are owned, and it does not differentiate them. If it was, you know, it does say, it says single family, dormitory, some of them say government. So I assume the ones that say residential and single family, but it did not, one of the big problems is like St. Mark's School, I think it was 65 School Marlborough Road. It was encompassing a lot of properties, so there was no way to figure out what was really what. And then the ones that are up in St. Mark's Circle are also included in that. So it's really hard to figure out what was what.
So did you look at the attachment to their 3 ABC where they go into great detail about the properties?
The attachment to the 3 ABC?
Yeah, they've got them listed individually. It's a lot. It's a big long list of their properties and each one. So I think that's probably helpful to understand where the numbers are coming from.
I think I have that here. So I have the fiscal year 2024 3 ABCs.
So you see the attachment to it?
Yeah, actually, you know what I'll do is share my screen. Okay, so this is the form, the 3 ABC that all of these schools fill out. I did notice on, I don't remember whether it was Fay or St. Mark's, that they actually just changed the year and used the same form. Like all the information, all the numbers, everything was the same. It was just the year at the top that was changed. So you're supposed to list the real estate and the fair cash value, estimated fair cash value of it. And then this is the attachment that Kathy was speaking about. So this is, here it says it's dated 12/31/2020, but they've just crossed that out and said it's the same thing for 12/31/2021. This doesn't list anything under the fair cash value columns, though.
Yeah, we put it just a big total at the bottom.
Yeah, there's just a big one number at the bottom.
Can we graph the surrounding properties and show like how they change value as compared to what the schools are saying their value changed?
Well, I mean, we could, I think Possibility should be able to tell us that, what the year-over-year increase in what assessments and tax were, right? The document that Michelle has that came from the assessor's office,
Yes.
which breaks down the individual properties and gives assessments on many of them individually, unless they have one address where there's multiple buildings. And we can just, oops, I can open up another one. This is the New England Center for Children for 2024. And I think I've put these all in the shared folder, which Tony and Pearl, I'll get Jay to set you up with access to. So
Okay,
this
thank you.
one does
So
include,
thank you. Oh, so thanks for doing that. So then just coming back to the agenda for this meeting then. So our agenda is to identify next steps. And so I think that's what we're discussing right now. So our next step is to gather more information and try to fill out this spreadsheet that Michelle has created. Is that correct?
yes. Yes.
Okay,
Before we get to that, I have one, hold on. I do have one thing that I want to ask about. One of the other questions that we had is in regard to what the town is paying to the schools, not just getting from the schools. And in regard to that, I filed a FOIA request with the town asking for vendor numbers for the schools. And I got the vendor numbers for New England Center for Children and St. Mark's. There were no vendor numbers for Fay School or for Harvard, which should indicate that we're not paying anything out. Although it would seem as though, wouldn't they use the same vendor number to receive money in? I guess not. So I've also put in a second FOIA request. And if this, because this is done personally by me, if it comes back with too much information, then the town wants to place a charge on it. If it is requested by a committee or board, then there isn't a charge. So I would like to read the request that I've put in and ask for a vote to be approved by this committee that per chance they come back and say that there is too much information to put together without a payment, that we can request it from the committee, if that's okay with everybody.
Why do you think we're making payments to NEC and to St. Mark's? Yeah, for what?
I don't know, but this is the way to find out.
Just a quick question for clarification, Patty. What
Yep.
what exactly is this? The vendor numbers?
So anyone or entity that the town disperses money to needs to have a vendor number.
Gotcha.
So my first request was just asking for any vendor numbers related to those 4 schools. So they came back with 2, one for St. Mark's and one for New England Center for Children. So I just want to be able to move forward. You know, they could come back and just say that there's, 10 checks. So it's not a big deal and they'll just supply them. But per chance, if they come back and say it's too much information and they want to charge me, I want to have it approved by the committee to request it. So what I'd like to do is read you the request as it will be filed with the town on behalf of the committee. And then if we could take a vote on it, that would be great. So the FOIA request is, or public records request, please provide invoices to, invoices from, payments to, payments from, and any supporting documents for vendor number 10586 and number 248 for the time period 1/1/2018 to 12/31/2023. Invoices to, invoices from, payments to, payments from, and any supporting documents for Fay School for the time period 1/1/2018 to 12/31/2023. And invoices to, invoices from, payments to, payments from, and any supporting documents for vendor Harvard University for the time period 1/1/2018 to 12/31/2023. Thank you. So I did put Fay and Harvard in, even though they said there was no vendor number, just, to cover my butt. That's all. So I think we would need a motion to take a vote, probably. I guess I
Needs to be
could-
discussed. So I'll make the motion, and then we'll discuss it.
So I think it'd be a motion to
Motion
approve a
to.
FOIA request to the town as stated.
The motion's been made. Can we discuss it now? You get a second first.
Oh, can I second it?
Second.
Either. Does anybody have any comments, any edits you would like to see to that?
No, but I don't support this at all. I think this makes it look like we're on some type of witch hunting.
What?
I know for
Sorry,
a
so one
fact
more
we're
time,
not-
Kathy? I'm sorry, you just have to speak up a
I
little
don't, I don't support this at all. I know for a fact we're not making payments to these schools if it is something trivial. So I don't know what this is going to accomplish, except make the town do work that is not going to give him help in his work here. So I don't support this. As far as
You were breaking up a lot. I didn't really understand why you are not supporting it.
because I know that there are no payments being made to these schools. And we're asking the town to do work that I believe is going to be totally relevant to what we're doing. That's not part of our charge. So I don't know if this makes it look like we are going after the schools. And I don't understand why we would want to give that impression. The schools don't have to make these payments. State law protects them. They're totally donations. We want to have a good relationship with schools. This is not the way to establish it. So I think this is outside our charge to begin with. And I know there's no payments that are being made to the schools for anything that matters. If there's payments, it's going to be something trivial.
So why would you have
Kathy?
vendor number?
I wonder, I wouldn't be surprised to see NEC working with the school district to provide supportive services to the district.
I'm not talking about those payments, Frank. I'm talking
okay.
about the town of Southborough.
Okay, so I'm
I'm not talking about NEC as far as what goes back and forth with the school system.
okay.
um,
So that would be my only clarification there.
I mean, there's definitely payments being made to NEC from the school system, for sure.
But I mean, not just, I mean, my point is NEC provides services to districts. They push out to districts, and I believe they've pushed out to Northborough, Southborough before. So.
Oh, absolutely. So I am not talking about that at all. So
Got it.
there certainly will be payments between the school system, which is a separate accounting system than the town.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll just say, I think, I agree with what Kathy just said. It seems like, I don't know, maybe it's not this complicated. It strikes me that maybe we should try to gather some more information about the other towns and the other schools on that spreadsheet. That seems like a pretty productive next step, personally.
Okay. Well, if we think it's going to fail, I can withdraw the request. Although I suppose there's a second, we need to take a vote. Okay. Michelle?
I have to say that I think I'm going to abstain because I couldn't hear the response from Kathy, and maybe I can just clarify. So you're looking to find out through the town of Southborough if any payments were made to these schools. Is that correct?
Yes, just to kind of balance out what they've paid to us and what we've paid to them. That's
Okay.
all.
All right.
I
And
mean,
it sounds like
it's
there's
just
been
really
no,
to have
and it
it's
sounds
just to
like
have a full balanced picture, a more balanced picture. That's all.
there's been no payments made to them. Is that correct?
Other than
No, we don't
what-
know that.
I know that. Other than what Frank has said as far as NEC in the school system, and that's a whole different topic.
Okay. So I guess it doesn't make sense for us to ask if we know we haven't paid anything to them. And
Well, but they do have vendor numbers.
so if they have vendor numbers, the town has paid them money. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Now, it might not be within the time frame
Okay.
of what I asked for. It could have been 40 years ago. I don't know whether they did vendor numbers back then, but right, which is when they came back to me and said there were no vendor numbers for Fay or for Harvard.
Mhm. So I guess I'm not really clear on what value this is going to add to the formula. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. Kathy,
No,
Harul,
Don't know enough yet.
that's
But,
okay. You can abstain.
my first meeting, sorry.
No problem. Tony
Tony, you're muted.
Sorry, no.
and Frank.
I am going to say no on this one.
Okay, and I will vote yes. All right, so I think what we were talking about in regard to next steps, we're going to make sure that that Excel file is accessible to everyone. I'll add in some of the other schools. Did we decide to add in a column for an endowment and a column for student population? Was that viable?
I mean, I think it's data, right? I mean, I think Kathy's also right that understanding what that means is a complex thing, but we may get to the point where that can be provided, and I can certainly look up Kathy and I can look up the Form 990s and put whatever information we want in there, right? So it's
I
readily
definitely
available.
like the number of students put there. I think that's relevant. So definitely students, and we put the endowment and then try to separate it between restricted and non-restricted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it should be there.
Why don't we add those two columns to the Excel if whoever chooses that particular school to look into. If you get that information, great. If you don't, that's okay. Michelle, did you have a
want
specific,
students and student population?
right, the endowment and the student population.
Okay.
Michelle, would you be able to share with us the original email document that you sent so we can have a kind of starting point to send an email? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. Can I send the email to everybody? Would that be easier?
Yes.
Is that
Sure.
legal to do? Okay.
Michelle, what you should do is put yourself in the to line and then blind copy everyone else.
Okay. And if you have any, if you want to add to it and make a better template, I'd be happy to use it. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. I'd like to just go in and look at the original list of
Yeah.
schools that are out there and see if there are any that, we should also look into.
Okay.
Okay, choosing a next meeting date. So I guess what we're saying is that I'm going to get access for Tony and Parole to the shared drive. Michelle and I are going to work on updating the format of that Excel file that's in there. There's also a number of other documents in there of backup that we've been using. And then if you all could look at that, and if there's any particular school that leaps out to you that you would be interested in contacting, you can just fill in your name and take responsibility for that. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah,
It
sure.
does.
So if we're sticking to the second Wednesday of the month for February, that would be the 14th, which is Valentine's Day, because February 1st is on a Thursday. Who has a suggestion on a meeting date?
The next Wednesday would be school vacation week.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
February.
I'm out of town all that week. I mean, you can meet without me, but I'm out of town all that week.
Could we do, since it's only one day off, being the second Wednesday of the month, how about the 7th? Is that realistic?
I'm traveling. I'll be back in US on 7th. Sorry.
Mhm. I'm traveling that week as well.
Okay, so maybe we should just make February a work month and go to
I
March.
was going to suggest the same thing, Peg. You give us February to work on this.
Yeah.
We have no
Okay,
excuse
so
not to have
let's
this
do
done
that.
by the meeting in March.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we can communicate via email. As I said to Michelle, if you want to contact everybody, just put all the other names except for yourself in the BCC line. And that way we don't violate open meeting law. Okay, so let's make February a work month and go to March. Second Wednesday of March is going to be the 13th.
That sounds
Where the Ides of March.
All
Okay.
is saying bye to us.
Who is?
Well, she's got to go.
Bye,
Oh.
Parul.
I need to drop out, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are good. Thank you for
Okay.
for coming. So we'll send out the information, but March 13th sounds like it was working. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, Pearl. Okay. I will put that down for March 13th, and then we have no other business. We have public comment. We have one person in the audience, but I see no hands raised. So that's it. I guess we will take a motion to adjourn. If anybody else has any discussion, please.
I make a motion to adjourn.
And a
I'll
second.
second that.
Okay, Michelle,
Yes.
roll. Kathy,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and Patty, yes. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your help.
Okay.
Take
Okay.
care.
Bye.